Hey, greetings. I'm one of the brothers from the Body of Christ Church, and I'm coming out here for another installment of our Black History expose. And I want to take a look at the civil rights movement and a couple of things that were going on. I got a lot of videos to show, and it's probably going to be, more than an hour. I'm going to try to keep it, keep the time down as much as I can. So I want to go over a scripture first to start everything out. All right. So let's go to Jeremiah chapter 3. All right. And read verse 23. Truly in vain is salvation hoped for from the hills and from the multitude of mountains. Truly in the Lord our God is the salvation of Israel. Now, you may ask, what does Israel have to do with Black history? Well, the Black history they teach only goes back a couple hundred years. Okay, because once you start talking about slavery, we came over from Africa and all this other stuff, that's where stuff gets murky. But when you look at if any came from Africa, who they were, what their lineage was, what the lineage of the people is that were already here in the Western Hemisphere, and you take that history back, it goes back to past Black, past African American, past Negro. All right. It goes all the way back to the children of Israel. And the reason that I can say that is because the conditions that are on these people today, scattered throughout the world, being called the names in other languages that mean slave, non-believer, infidel, N-word, all these other things. Plus they're being oppressed, shot indiscriminately by the police, being discriminated against, and just having an overall stressful and hard time at life. The Bible describes these conditions and more that would be on people today, even today in the last days, as the description and the definition of who the true biblical Israelites are. And one thing about these true biblical Israelites is they look up to things and people, influencers, celebrities, musicians, people with money, people that have a camera and a mic in front of their face, people on the news. They look to these people as things or sources of information that can save them from the hard life that they live. And that is absolutely vanity. We hope for salvation in the wrong things. So I'm going to go over a few scriptures and some videos of the civil rights movement, okay, to show that the civil rights movement in the United States was straight up vanity. All right. So this is Malcolm X. The channel on YouTube is Yasser Johnson. Malcolm X exposes the Big Six. You can check it out for yourself. I'm only play about I think it's 3 or 4 minutes of it. But this is what was happening in the civil rights movement.
King became bankrupt almost as a leader. Plus, even financially, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference was in financial trouble. Plus, it was in trouble, period, with the people when they failed to desegregate Albany, Georgia. Other Negro civil rights leaders of so-called national stature became fallen idols. As they became...
Wait a minute. What did he say? fallen idols. These were people that were set up or had set themselves up to save our people from the condition that they were in. And it didn't work.
Other Negro civil rights leaders of so-called national stature became fallen idols. As they became fallen idols, began to lose their prestige and influence, local Negro leaders began to stir up the masses. In Cambridge, Maryland, Gloria Richardson. In Danville, Virginia, and other parts of the country, local leaders begin to stir up our people at the grassroots level. This was never done by these Negroes whom you recognize of national stature. They controlled you, but they never incited you or excited you. They controlled you. They contained you. They kept you on the plantation.
For who? Whose plantation? But weren't most of us living in cities at the time? Who were they controlling us for?
You or excited you. They controlled you. They contained you. They kept you on the plantation. As soon as King failed in Birmingham, Negroes took to the streets. King got out and went out to California to a big rally and raised about, I don't know how many thousands of dollars. Come to Detroit and had a march and raised some more thousands of dollars. And recall, right after that, Wilkins attacked King, accused King and the Corps of starting trouble everywhere and then making the NAACP get him out of jail and spend a lot of money, and then he accused King and Corps of raising all the money and not paying it back. This happened.
So Thurgood Marshall at the time was the head of the NAACP in Chicago. And he had said he was going to stop representing King and these other people that were going out purposely agitating for the cameras to promote an agenda instead of doing the serious business that needed to be done and being thrown in jail and then expecting to be represented by him and his support staff for free. Because they had to travel from Chicago all over the South to bail them out, to do all this other stuff, handle all these court cases, and we're not getting the money back.
In the Corps of starting trouble everywhere and then making the NAACP get him out of jail and spend a lot of money, and then he accused King and Corps of raising all the money and not paying it back. This happened. I got it in documented evidence in the newspaper.
There you go. He had the documents. All right. There was internal feuding going on because King and them was raising all the money, but all the support staff, Thurgood Marshall, right? Head of the NAACP in Chicago. He was handling all the court cases where all the times they got arrested and thrown in jail and stuff, and they weren't paying them for the billable hours that was stacking up. So Thurgood Marshall was like, yo, listen, not only are we handling your court cases, there was no Zoom at the time. No Zoom app. They had to travel to Memphis or to Albany, Georgia, or to Birmingham from Chicago and back. And we're not getting paid for that. And they weren't getting any donations. So the movement of these fallen idols that people hoped in vainly was falling apart.
Roy started attacking King, and King started attacking Roy, and Farmer started attacking both of them. And as these Negroes of national stature begin to attack each other, they begin to lose their control of the Negro masses. And Negroes was out there in the streets They was talking about we're going to march on Washington. By the way, and right at that time, Birmingham had exploded, and the Negroes in Birmingham, remember, they also exploded. They began to stab the crackers in the back and bust them upside the head. Yes, they did. That's when Kennedy sent in the troops down in Birmingham.
So when that type of stuff was happening to us, there was no National Guard troops or Army troops coming in. But when our people raised up and started doing it to other people, now the troops got to come in. But wasn't Kennedy for the movement? I mean, I went to my grandmother's house when I was a baby. She had this tapestry up on the wall. It was King, Bobby Kennedy, and John Kennedy. And those were the saviors of the people from the civil rights movement. Truly in vain is salvation hoped for from the hills and from the multitude of mountains. We have so many people, places, and things and methods and isms that we think are going to save us, but they don't do anything for us because they are not the Most High through Christ, according to as it is written. Let's go on.
So, and right after that, Kennedy got on the television and said, this is a moral issue. That's when he said he's going to put out a civil rights bill. And when he mentioned civil rights bill and the Southern crackers started talking about they were going to boycott it or filibuster it.
The Southern Dixiecrats, Democrats, filibustered the bill and they were against it. And the only one that switched party lines to be a Republican was Strom Thurmond. All the other ones kept being Democrats. The only party switch in the 60s was when King and his ilk convinced black people to stop voting Republican and vote Democrat for Kennedy. That was the party switch. Let's keep going.
And when he mentioned civil rights bill and the Southern crackers started talking about they were going to boycott it or filibuster it, then the Negroes started talking about what? We're going to march on Washington, march on the Senate, march on the White House, march on the Congress, and tie it up, bring it to a halt. Don't let the government proceed. They even said they was going to go out to the airport and lay down on the runway and don't let no airplanes land. I'm telling you what they said. That was revolution. That was revolution. That was the black revolution. It was the grassroots out there in the street. Scared the white man to death. Scared the white power structure in Washington, D.C. to death. I was there. When they found out that this black steamroller was going to come down on the Capitol, they called in Wilkins. They called in Randolph. They called in these national Negro leaders that you respect and told them, call it off. Kennedy said, look, y'all letting this thing go too far. And old Tom said, boss, I can't stop it because I didn't start
it. Because they weren't in control. People were going to do their own activism. They didn't need these leaders. It was a grassroots organic movement. And it wasn't to integrate into other people's businesses. It was just give us equality of opportunity and stop getting drunk and driving through the hood and beating us up and stuff like that. You leave us alone, we'll leave y'all alone. It wasn't nothing about integration that the grassroots wanted. But it wasn't controlled and scripted by the puppets for the owners, right? Because they were put there to control us and keep us on the plantation for their owners.
I'm telling you what they said. They said, I'm not even in it, much less at the head of it. They said, these Negroes are doing things on their own. They're running ahead of us. And that old shrewd fox, he said, well, if you all aren't in it, I'll put you in it. I'll put you at the head of it.
Yeah.
I'll endorse it. I'll welcome it. I'll help it. I'll join it. A matter of hours went by. They had a meeting at the Carlisle Hotel in New York City. The Carlisle Hotel is owned by the Kennedy family. That's the hotel Kennedy spent the night at 2 nights ago. Belongs to his family. A philanthropic society headed by a white man named Stephen Currier called all the top civil rights leaders together at the Carlisle Hotel and told them that by you all fighting each other, you're destroying the civil rights movement. And since you're fighting over money from white liberals, let us set up what's known as the Council for United Civil Rights Leadership. Let's form this council, and all the civil rights organizations will belong to it. And we'll use it for fundraising purposes. Let me show you.
So this was the start of the popularity of the nonprofit industrial complex, because Lyndon B. Johnson's Great Society was coming. And they had other ones too, I'm sure, but this umbrella group over all the civil rights groups was controlled by Currier, right? And he's going to go into it, but it was to be used for fundraising purposes. You write grants, you get money to fulfill the purpose of the grant, and you spend a ton of money on salaries and overhead. And like Charleston White said on the expose class, we used a couple of his clips. 5 to 10% of all the money you get only goes to solving the problem. Everything else is overhead and salaries. This was the start of it. And that's why they put all of those civil rights groups under that umbrella. So everybody at the top of these civil rights groups was getting paid.
Leadership. Let's form this council, and all the civil rights organizations will belong to it. And we'll use it for fundraising purposes. Let me show you how tricky the white man is. And as soon as they got it formed, they elected Whitney Young as the chairman. And who you think became the co-chairman? Stephen Currier, the white man. A millionaire. Powell was talking about it down at the Cobo today. This is what he was talking about. Powell knows it happened. Randolph knows it happened. Wilkins knows it happened. King knows it happened. Every one of that so-called Big Six. They know what happened.
Because they was all getting paid.
Once they formed it, with the white man over it, he promised them and gave them $800,000 to split up between the Big Six.
This is in 1960 something. Okay, so that's got to be $2 or $3, $4 million today. But it was a nice chunk of change. All right, but wait, there's more.
And told them that after the march was over, they'd give them $700,000 more. $1.5 million split up between leaders that you've been following, going to jail for, crying crocodile tears for, and they've nothing but Frank James and Jesse James and brothers.
So they were getting paid, and they were being controlled, and they were setting out to control the growing movement of our people expressing dissatisfaction with the way we were being treated by other people in this country. They were set there to control it. They formed an umbrella group used for fundraising purposes, and they got paid. Remember that. Okay. Now I want to go to something that Martin Luther King said. Okay, there it is. So this is what Martin Luther King was talking. This is way after the March on Washington. Martin Luther King started talking about economic injustice. He started talking about, you know, how we were really treated unfairly economically in this country. All right. And I want you to listen to what he said. Okay. And this is by the First Time Homebuyer Show with Gizmo by House Rich. And then this is on YouTube. Martin Luther King Jr. on ownership, real estate, and reparations. We're coming to get our check. All right.
At the same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming.
And who was farming and doing all the slave farming in the South and Midwest? So yeah, they used some of our people to teach these immigrants that they were paying, bringing over here and paying money and giving property and having us teach them how to farm and wasn't giving us nothing.
Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farms. Not only that, today, many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps.
So, that's interesting. All right. So, you know what? I forgot. There's something else. I don't know why I pulled that down. There's something else to this. Let me play the rest.
And this is what we are faced with. And this is a reality. Now, when we come to Washington in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
Okay. So he was talking about, listen, they done took from us, didn't give us equality of opportunity, brought people over here from overseas and gave them stuff they was not given to us. So they owe us money. Matter of fact, it sounds like what happened in this country over the last, I don't know, 10 years or 15 years or so, where they was bringing people from overseas, giving them money, giving them apartments, putting them up in luxury hotels, giving them day by day money, giving them monthly money, right? Giving them CDL license, driver's license, all this stuff without tests, not making them get vaccinated to have jobs, all this stuff they was doing for these people they imported and wasn't doing nothing for us. Well, if you recognize patterns, you know what I'm talking about. But what he was saying is, hey, listen, this time in this campaign, when we go to Washington this time, we're coming to get our check. Okay, so I want to show something. When did he give this speech? All right. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered the speech containing the phrase, "We are coming to get our check," in Mississippi in May. This is actually March 1968, just a few weeks before his assassination on April 4th. Okay. This powerful statement was part of his broader critique of systemic economic injustice and a call for reparations, highlighting how the U.S. government provided extensive support such as land grants, land grant colleges, Texas A&M University, Florida A&M University, Agriculture and Manufacturing University. That's some of these colleges. Low interest loans and subsidies to white. They weren't necessarily white Americans that were already here. They were people that they bought here, while denying similar opportunities to Black Americans, particularly after emancipation. All right. So it just wasn't in the 20s and 30s and stuff. It was like, it was going on while Jim Crow was going on, and on up until his time where he blew it up. All right. The phrase encapsulated the central demand of the Poor People's Campaign, which King was organizing at the time. So he was organizing this Poor People's Campaign. All right. So, wait a minute. What is the Poor People's Campaign? And let's look this up. This is from Wikipedia. All right. Poor People's Campaign. And there's something in here that's very telling. The Poor People's Campaign, or Poor People's March on Washington, was a 1968 effort to gain economic justice, which is social justice, which is a redistribution of wealth, which is Marxism. All right. For poor people in the United States, not for Blacks, including civil rights. It was organized by Martin Luther King Jr. and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and carried out under the leadership of Ralph Abernathy in the wake of King's assassination, in April 1968. The campaign demanded economic and human rights for poor Americans of diverse backgrounds. What happened to Black people? What happened to civil rights for Black people? See how he did that pivot? Not only was he talking about the system enough for them to go ahead and say, listen, you've outlived your usefulness, we're going to take you out. He pivoted away from the people that he was supposedly supporting. Okay, they set up a 3,000 person protest camp like Occupy Wall Street or whatever they had, a couple years, 10, 15 years ago. All right. Here's the thing. The Poor People's Campaign was motivated by a desire for economic justice, which was a redistribution of wealth. All right. And this is the thing. Before King, in the Black church, you had a lot of preaching about how the responsibility was on the individual, and as the man, as the head of the family, had to do whatever he had to do to make things happen for his family. And it also encouraged community, and we're stronger together. Yeah, these people, they hate us and they're wicked, but we trust in the Lord, we can handle this. Right. And that's one of the ways that we went from a almost 0% literacy rate after the Civil War to an almost 100% literacy rate by the 1930s or 40s. And we had our own banks, hospitals, ambulances. We had our own police. Well, we had Black police that was part of the larger police department in the city, but they were in the Black neighborhoods. We had our own taxis, Black bus services. We had our own communities. But now when King came up, it was a switch. The responsibility is not on the man anymore. The responsibility is on the government. So you can do whatever you want to do. The government owes you some money. And it also looked away, both of these versions of belief looked away, or a lot of them before King looked away from the fact that we were in Jim Crow and in racism and coming out of slavery, because the Lord said we were going to be put in captivity and slavery and have to suffer these things because we disobeyed him, the Lord. Okay. So here's the thing. Remember I said that they pivoted? King and the SCLC shifted their focus to these issues away from civil rights. After observing that gains in civil rights had not improved the material conditions of life for many African Americans. But guess what? The people running those nonprofits and that umbrella group got paid. And the people that was out there in the administrative level controlling and keeping our people on the plantation, they were getting paid. If you hear about some of the parties that they used to have. All right. So they had shifted away from helping black people. Jeremiah 3:23. I'm going to pull that up again right quick. Jeremiah 3:23. Truly in vain is salvation hoped for from the hills and from the multitude of mountains. Truly in the Lord our God is the salvation of Israel. So our enemies set up people. Some of our own people try to set themselves up as the way and the truth and the life that we're supposed to live to solve all of our problems. It's vanity. Verse 24, for shame hath devoured the labor of our fathers from our youth. Why? Because a lot of our people, what Malcolm X say? Out there getting hoses sprayed on you, getting bit by dogs, crying crocodile tears over these people, out there giving your body to be broken, right? Out there rabble rousing, and then your store or get set on fire, your car get blown up. All the stuff our parents and grandparents went through in that movement, and nothing came of it because they shifted away from it. Once they got our allegiance, they shifted to another point. That's why they can come in here and bring people out of this from out of the country right now, give them 500% more than they ever gave us on average, and say if the government wants to take it away, it's racism, and black people get all riled up and say, yeah, it's racist, because we can't understand when something is for our benefit and when we're getting abused, because in vain we look for salvation from people and places and things and isms and movements that are set before us, set up on high, front headline news all the time. Every day it's a headline about this movement. Black Lives Matter. Okay. Black mansions matter. How about that? But then the people that started speaking up about it, like the dude in St. Louis, started speaking up about how it was wrong and it was weird and it was stealing money. He ended up dead. Mysteriously, I might add. And so when we go into these shameful things and get embarrassed and find out that the stuff really doesn't help us, guess what? Verse 25 of Jeremiah 3. We lie down in our shame, and our confusion covereth us. For we have sinned against the Lord our God, we and our fathers from our youth even unto this day, and have not obeyed the voice of the Lord our God, because that is what's going to bring us back. Not following after the teachings of Gandhi that the Boule MLK dude was talking about. This is the way. No, the Lord God of our fathers of the Bible as it is written is the way. There is no other way. There is no other way. We've tried everything. They was walking around before King talking about wearing signs, I am a man. And then after him too. Then in the 80s, it was Run, Jesse, Run. And we got some stuff about Jesse coming up. And then now, a couple years ago, Black Lives Matter. How is that any different? We're always trying the same things. The debauchery, the isms, the capitalism is going to work. No, socialism is going to work. No, communism is going to work. When all three of those isms hate black people. But we keep trying all of these things and trying to get over and scam the system or just drink our way into not caring about it anymore or follow after sports and knowing all the statistics and of the players and who they faced and why Michael Jordan is greater than LaFleur. All of this stuff. It's vanity. It's straight vanity. Straight vanity. All right. So that was Martin Luther King talking about we coming to get our check, right? So this is put up by Michael Imhotep on YouTube, The Murder of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Part 1, Dick Gregory. Okay. So I'm just going to go through this.
I was at the trial in Memphis. I want to show you all quickly, explain to you why that jury of 6 blacks and 6 whites after 3 hours came back and found that white boy guilty of conspiring to kill Dr. Martin Luther King. And they went further than that. They also said there was some co-conspirators, black folks, unnamed.
So you got to look at this. They're talking about unnamed co-conspirators. They found King, accepted him, set him up, guided him, scripted him, controlled him. And when he outlived his usefulness, they lined up somebody else to come after him and take over after he had outlived his usefulness. All right. So let's go on.
Conspiring to kill Dr. Martin Luther King. And they went further than that. They also said there was some co-conspirators, black folks, unnamed, that was involved.
Yeah, they know who they were. They knew who the co-conspirators were. And let's see if any of them kept the movement alive after his demise.
That was involved. I want to show you a little 3-minute clip of the minister that Dr. King was going by his house for dinner. He was due at 7, but they had to move it up for 7. It'd be a little too dark to shoot somebody. So they moved it to 6 o'clock. 2 years ago at a press conference in Memphis, I get a call. And they said, so-and-so is thinking about killing so-and-so. I said, what? I said, well, he said something at a press conference. I said, put him on the phone. I said, whatever you do, get that film. Because once NBC realized what this brother had slipped and said, we will never get our hands on the film. What you're fixing to see now went into the evidence in the King trial where they brought a wrongful death suit, and I'll explain that to you quickly in a minute. But what you're fixing to witness now is the man who came by to get King to take him to dinner. And 30 years later at a press conference, he slipped because God do baffle your mind sometimes. You look.
Some of the activities are geared especially for the young who did not have a chance to get the feel or to know what the civil rights movement actually was about. Even as they marched, now they could have stopped in a hotel, but when you think about marching from Memphis to Jackson or Jackson to Memphis, there were no hotels. You stayed in churches, you stayed in people's homes, and that's how we got over. That's how we got through. The struggle was a spiritual struggle. You couldn't pay people to do what we had to do.
Cap. Lie. They got paid. They was already getting donations, but they was running low and got $1.5 million. That was just for the march. But remember, that organization was set up for fundraising so that they could keep the money rolling in. They was getting paid. So he's lying.
The struggle was a spiritual struggle. You couldn't pay people to do what we had to do. You couldn't pay people to stand before mad dogs and fire hoses and billy clubs and cattle prods.
Yo, yeah, that's right, because people were giving their all and making that sacrifice and getting beat up and victimized and bit. But guess what? The people that was running the march and the organizations was PADE, paid. Did Brother Johnson that got bit by the dog get some money for his stitches and his hospital treatment?
It was strictly a spiritual and moral movement.
Demons are spirits too. So what spirit are you talking about?
So we wanted that dimension to be in the pilgrimage to Memphis. We will revisit the mountaintop speech site. That's the Mason's Temple, where Dr. King made his last address.
Do I really have to say anything? The ones that were doing the containing and keeping you on the plantation. What organization were they really of? And why were they selected to do what they were doing? And if it's the Lord's will, we'll have a class going over some scriptures with some videos and stuff like that. It should be pretty interesting. I'm trying to cut it down from about 3.5 hours to an hour and a half or less. But Lord's will, that'll be coming out soon.
It was strictly a spiritual and moral movement. So we wanted that dimension to be in the pilgrimage to Memphis. We will revisit the mountaintop speech site. That's the Mason's Temple, where Dr. King made his last address, which he almost didn't make, because the night that we were having that rally, there were tornado warnings, and he was behind on the Poor People's Campaign. And he said, you guys go on over and have the rally. I'm going to stay at the motel and work on the Poor People's Campaign. When we got there and Dr. Abernathy walked in and Jesse Jackson walked in and I walked in and others, people started clapping.
Jesse Jackson was at this movement and was on the scene when MLK died. Just remember that.
Because they thought Martin was behind us. And so Ralph's preacher said to him, this is not our crowd. And he went to the phone and called Dr. King, and that any of the marches that we had in those days, you have an opportunity to bring the children and bring the family and march with us. And when I finished sharing with them the last hour of Dr. King's life, oh, hurry, But that gave me the wonderful privilege of spending the last hour on earth. 3 preachers in a room, Abernathy, King, and Kyle.
That's Reverend Kyle, in case you're wondering who that is.
And we spent that last hour together in room 306 at the Lorraine Motel. The press is always curious, and writers, what went on? What did you talk about? I say, we just talk preacher talk. What preachers talk about when they get together?
Yeah. There's reports of what them preachers were doing inside them hotel rooms and inside people's houses. And it wasn't biblical.
Okay, revivals and all what you're fixing to hear now.
About 5:45.
So that's Dick Gregory in the background saying, pay attention to what you're about to hear now.
We walked on the balcony, and he was talking to people in the courtyard. He stood here and I stood there. Only as I moved away so we could have a clear shot, the shot rang out. Thank you. I turned around and then...
What? Unnamed co-conspirators to take him out?
Knocked him back on the balcony.
Listen.
Crazy, ain't it?
Wait, listen.
It was the racist white man.
Listen.
It was the racist white man that killed him. It was the racist white man killed him. That all the blacks were unified. All the black people was unified. There wasn't nobody. They was all down for the cause. They did it for the love of the game, right? Okay. All right. I mean, it's still a free country for a little while, at least. You can think what you want to think, I guess.
30 years later, this brother never realized he would slip and say that.
Okay, and once again, that was Michael Imhotep on YouTube. All right. So that's crazy, huh? You see what happens when you go into that system, right? And you try to be an activist or even like celebrities speaking out against stuff. It's celebrities, it's athletes, it's any of our people that excel anywhere in the system that they have set up, right? Anytime we go into that and think we're going to profit profit in that and get our people out of their condition, that's vanity. You could go into these systems and have jobs and employment and stuff, but the Most High in Christ should be your priority. Those cats' priority had shifted because, number one, they were trying to control the people and keep them on the plantation, even though most of us were in cities at the time. And number two, they sold out for money. And then when they started trying to wake up, even though they had pivoted from black people only, when King started talking about the stuff that he was going to do, and we coming to get money and all this other stuff, and we upsetting the apple cart, it was like, okay, all right, let's see how many of your people is really down for the cause. Truly, in vain is salvation hoped for from the hills and the multitude of mountains. The only salvation we have is in the Lord our God, because none of the leaders that's set up in this society, especially when they're set up by who? Our enemies, the ones that want to control us and keep us down and don't want us to have anything lest it disturb the order they have set in this world. We trust in them instead of the Lord? Really? Really? Let's look at another video. All right. And this is Hosea Williams. He was there when King got assassinated. And this is put up by Kalanji Changa. I'm sorry. Hosea Williams on the assassination of MLK and Jesse Jackson's lies and bloody shirt. And this is like straight crazy. Straight crazy. This right here is Game of Thrones. All right. So let's check this out.
We were discussing the Washington movement, Poor People Campaign in Washington. And that afternoon, we were in the meeting, and someone said, Reverend Billy Kyles is outside, and he's upset. And Dr. King said, oh my God, I forgot to tell you, I promised his wife, who's supposed to be a great soul food cooker, we'd have our feet on her table at 5:30. Now it's 5:45, and we sit in the meeting. Dr. King said, everybody rush, rush, rush.
Okay, remember what Dick Gregory said? They're supposed to have dinner at 7. They moved it up to 6. Now they're supposed to be, getting ready to go to this dinner. All right?
And get ready in a hurry. Let's go. So I ran down and got to my room. My key wouldn't open my door for some strange reason. The limousine that had been loaned to us, I opened my door. I could touch the limousine.
Yo, hold on. Whoa. Yo, grassroots movement got limos now, huh? Grassroots organic movement. Limousine sounds like scripted, controlled.
The limousine that had been loaned to us, I opened my door. I could touch the limousine. And finally, I heard the driver tell Dr. King, Dr. King, I advise you get your top coat, because even though I have the car on, it's still chilly. And the last words he said in this world, okay, Jonesy, I'll get my top coat. And I heard this thing say, bow. And I honestly thought someone had thrown a firecracker into the air. And I looked around to rebuke whoever was that stupid. And I heard something, bloop, fell up above my head. And I looked up, and his leg was sticking through the rail. Dr. King only wore one type of sock and one type of shoe. And I knew that was him. I said, oh, my God, they got it. And then I had to run about 50 feet down and back up, and I got to him. And Ralph was holding his head, and Andy was there. And a guy from Africa who had been...
Who was holding his head? Ralph Abernathy. Remember this.
Was there. And a guy from Africa who had been traveling with us and Ralph was holding his head, and Andy was there. And a guy from Africa who had been traveling with us as a newsman from Africa. We found out later on he was working for the CIA. No, the FBI, working for the FBI. And he'd taken a lot of pictures of Dr. King, and I grabbed him in and threw that.
So this was a known fact that his photographer was working for intelligence. Okay. They had agents all around him. The one dude just said, just as I moved out the way so they could get a clear shot. All right. They had people all around this dude to control him and script him and keep him on course. He started going off course. Okay, this is the course we're going to put you on. You want to go off course? We're going to put you off. But listen to this. But wait, there's more. Because we got to start talking about Jesse.
Later on, he was working for the CIA. No, the FBI, working for the FBI. And he'd taken a lot of pictures of Dr. King. And I grabbed him in and threw that and started choking him, because the bullet hit Dr. King right here. And it went round and cut his medulla oblongata. And I didn't want people to remember Dr. King with half his face shut off. So Andy ran and got a towel. And somehow or another, they took one more picture after I made him enter that camera. And it shows Dr. King down with a towel on his face. But I'm going to tell you, I was an expert gunner in World War II. When I ran up on that balcony and I looked from whence that bullet had to come, the distance of that bullet, and just could feel the wind blowing that day, I say, whomever shot that rifle was one of the best in the world. He shot.
Meaning that it wasn't James Earl Ray. I guess. Okay. Was James Earl Ray was he a sniper? Okay.
On that day, I say, whomever shot that rifle was one of the best in the world. He shot one bullet. And I believe that Dr. King hadn't moved to go back and get his top coat, the bullet would hit him between the eyes. The bullet hit him right here. But what happened, and then Ralph said, we'll go in and take him on to the hospital. Jose, you get all the staff together. 3 of us saw it, Dr. King, after he was shot. 3 SLC executive staff members. And
so here it is. They had layers of administration, right, for that fundraising and organizing and disbursement of the money. So it was going to the leaders and the people that was out there getting bit by dogs. And, you know, if they couldn't use it for a photo op, they probably wasn't even helping them. Okay, so a lot of the people that you see the fire hoses on, they're getting bit by dogs and all this stuff. Did they ever see any of that $1.5 million or any of the money that was coming in before or after that? And is that right?
Abernathy and Jose Williams. Those are the 3 that saw that body. Now listen to that. So I got in the yard and I was about to lose my cool because I was thinking if I could take some molecules out there and make me some guns and kill me some white folks. And one man said, now be cool. You're doing the same thing you're promising me you'll never do. And I started crying. And then I heard Jesse Jackson say, he told me, Jesse, take our people onto the mountaintop.
Okay. So it was 3 other people around King. But I guess he said, in the midst of all his pain, he said, yo, Jesse, come here.
He told me, Jesse, take our people onto the mountaintop. And that didn't bother me, even though I know Jesse got nowhere near him. And then Jesse said, I held his head in my hand while he died. And that didn't get to me. And then Jesse said, look at my shirt. And I looked around, sure enough, and Jesse Jackson's shirt was drenched in blood. And I realized the only way Jesse could have gotten that blood was stoop down on that floor at the Lorraine Motel and rake that blood off that floor and put that blood on him. Was drenched in blood.
So you got to remember, Jesse Jackson kind of like blew up after this and was talking, listen, I'm the one that's chosen to go and keep this movement going. Okay? But listen to what he did again.
And I realized the only way Jesse could have gotten that blood was stoop down on that floor at the Lorraine Motel and rake that blood off that floor and put that blood on him. And I went crazy. I really tried to kill Jesse. They grabbed us all.
Because dude knew he was straight lying. He's lying.
Lorraine Motel and rake that blood off that floor and put that blood on him. And I went crazy. I really tried to kill Jesse. They grabbed us and all that, but that hurt me so bad. The other thing was, when Abernathy and those came back, says, no need of prayer, no need of cry, no need.
But wait, there's more.
Nothing. He is going, it's over with. He's going to glory. And we called the meeting, a staff meeting, and Jesse claimed to have been ill. And Abernathy told him, Jesse, go ahead to the room and relax. Jesse had to have run like hell that room into that airport because he got out of Memphis to Chicago. All us feeling, everybody was still in the motel, cut the televisions on the next morning. That was Jesse Jackson in Chicago with that same bloody shirt on.
So,
because he got out.
So wait a minute, yo. So Jesse, the only way he could have got blood on his shirt was to scrape it up off the floor with his hands and rub it on his shirt. Then Instead of going to his hotel room so they could meet up the next morning, he left the hotel room, went straight to the airport, flew from Memphis to Chicago. Was that a planned flight? I don't know. And the next morning, instead of being in the hotel room, in the hotel rooms with them, he's in Chicago with the bloody shirt on.
Jesse had to have run like hell that room into that airport because he got out of Memphis to Chicago. All us feeling, everybody was still in the motel. Cut the televisions on the next morning. That was Jesse Jackson in Chicago with that same bloody shirt on, telling that same lie. I've never respected Jesse since that moment.
Really? Really? Is that true? Let's see. Let's pull this up. Jesse Jackson, after King death, bloody shirt. This is what I searched for. This is the AI summary. Jesse Jackson was present at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis on April 4th, 1968, when Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. Multiple sources confirm that Jackson claimed that he cradled King's head after the shooting and wore a turtleneck stained with King's blood in the days that followed, meaning he didn't wear it just that day. He took it with him to Chicago and kept wearing it. Jackson's actions drew both support and criticism. He appeared on national television, including the NBC Today Show, and at a Chicago City Council meeting wearing the blood-stained shirt. So is this a money grab? Is this we clout farming, or what's the term for that? Aura farming? We trying to build a brand, or we trying to get paid? Because I know this cat was worth millions and millions of dollars when he passed. And Operation Push was worth millions and millions of dollars. During the council meeting, he said, "On my chest is the blood stain from Dr. King's head, framing it as a symbol of mourning and continuity in the civil rights struggle. I'm taking over. This is my job now." Okay. However, yeah, there's more. However, several members of King's inner circle disputed Jackson's account. We just saw one on video. Ralph Abernathy, who Hosea Williams said was one of the three men there, stated he was the only one that cradled King. Hosea Williams, the brother we just saw, and Chauncey Eskridge questioned how Jackson could have blood on his shirt, suggesting it may have been collected from the balcony floor after the body was removed. Coretta Scott King reportedly refused to speak to Jackson for years, viewing his actions as self-promotional. Oh, in 2001, they came out with some yeah, sure they did. Yeah. He was indeed near King's body, but there was three brothers that was there that said he didn't. But now y'all got pictures of him near not at the body. Man, come on. Come on, man. This is insane. It's just, it's just insane. Crazy. Crazy. Let's go to some scriptures. I wanted to go to John 10. And there's a ton of places I could go to, but I'm just going to go here and somewhere else. All right. John 10, and I'm going to scroll down to 12 and 13. Well, I'm going to start at 11. And this is Jesus Christ talking. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd giveth his life for the sheep. Meaning that he gave his life to redeem us, his people, from our sins. Matthew 1:21. All right. But he that is an hireling, a paid servant, a mercenary, and not the shepherd, meaning not Christ, whose own the sheep are not. Yeah, because King and those guys were getting paid, and they were selected, set up, guided, controlled, and scripted by other people that were not Christ and were not even of our nation, not even of our common ancestry. And they were controlled and paid off. That whole thing was a psyop to get us to believe in a false prophet teaching madness, to distract us away from what Christ is teaching us. So let me start again in 12. But he that is an hireling and not the shepherd, whose own the sheep are not, seeth the wolf coming, and leaveth the sheep, and fleeth. And the wolf catcheth them, and scattereth the sheep. And that's basically what happened. You had people that were supposedly pushing for civil rights. They was getting paid. They wasn't Christ. They wasn't teaching us Christ's words. They didn't really care about us. All right. And there was danger coming for our people by us integrating in with these people instead of having our own communities and our own businesses. We shut down our businesses and bankrupted our neighbors to go get spit in our coffee at somebody else's business. And then now you have the war on drugs, the me generation, the crack epidemic, the meth, the 3 strikes law, the super predators, all this stuff coming from politicians who we also trust in. My politician is better than your politician. Or neither one of them careth about the people because they're getting paid. In some way, shape, or form, they're getting paid. Just like Jesse Jackson was getting paid from aura farming and clout farming and building that brand that he was the one, not any of the other people that was with King. He was the one, and all the media should concentrate on him and deal with him as the leader of the civil rights movement. And all he was doing with Operation Push was extorting companies of money. I'll sue you if you don't hire black people I recommend. How come the black people got to be recommended through you? Why can't we just hire some black men? No. That's his legacy. In addition to wearing somebody's blood all over your shirt for a few days to try to gain clout. So when that danger comes, they're not gonna tell the people, yo, it's danger. This is it. No, they're gonna teach them smooth words. And then the danger comes and catches the people and scatters us. Like right now, we used to all be in certain pockets in neighborhoods in all the major cities. This was like 60s and 70s. Don't all black people and brown people live in the same community anymore? We scattered all around all these major cities now, throughout these metropolitan areas. We're not even in the same core communities we were when we were in this time period of the civil rights movement. John 10, verse 13, the hireling fleeth because he is an hireling and careth not for the sheep. So the hireling doesn't care for the sheep. The hireling cares about the money he's getting paid because he's getting hired to be a leader. He's not doing the leading of the people for the love of Christ. And that's why this whole civil rights thing is a scam. All right. I want to read one more thing because they was talking about the donations, right? And the funding and everything, you know, for the excuse me, for the movement. And like I said, it was people out there getting bit by dogs, fire hoses sprayed on them, getting beat by cops and troopers with billy clubs, getting shot at and stuff like that. They weren't getting paid, but the leaders of the movement was getting paid, and the people at administrative levels in the movement was getting paid, right? They set up an umbrella organization over all the civil rights group whose purpose was fundraising. But if you fix the problem with the fundraising you get, you don't need any more money. But they want to keep the money coming in, so they have to find the next problem to solve. And you look at the Poor People's Campaign. What was that? They got all this black people support, and guess what? They pivoted from helping blacks and civil rights. Okay? They pivoted from that and went to helping all poor people doing a redistribution of wealth, which is straight communism. They left black people in the dust. Okay, so this is Acts chapter 4, and I'm going to start at 33. This is what happens when you take donations, what's supposed to happen, and what spirit is supposed to be in for your movement. John 4:33. And with great power gave the apostles witness of the resurrection of the Lord Jesus, and great grace was upon them all. Neither was there any among them that lacked, for as many as were possessors of lands or houses sold them and brought the prices of the things that were sold and laid them down at the apostles' feet. And distribution was made unto every man according as he had need. Did that happen with Black Lives Matter? Did that happen with the civil rights movement? You really want me to answer that? You already know. Okay. So this is what's supposed to happen, not just the people at the top getting paid. All right. So, I mean, there's a lot more that I could go into, but I don't want to make this too long, or much longer, rather. It's already too long, you know. So I just wanted to bring out that part of so-called Black history, civil rights. There's a ton more of our history in the Bible, regardless of what people say. And that's what we need to investigate, because it'll tell you how we went off, why things like the civil rights movement and stuff like that happened to us, and what we can do individually and as a group of people, a nation of people, a family nation of people, to get back and get right with the Lord so he can fix these things for us, because he's the only one capable of doing it. So sorry that took so long. And I hope you have a blessed day, and I hope this was edifying. And I am going to say shalom until next time. Peace.